Well, as I mentioned earlier, the Bank of Canada set to announce a significant rate hike tomorrow. And how does that affect you that have mortgages or wanting to remortgage or looking at perhaps buying your first home? Well, our next guest has some of those answers for you. I'm joined by Scott Satov. He is the founder of Loans Canada. Scott, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. And let's start off on that point. What kind of rate hike do we expect to see tomorrow from the Bank of Canada?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Derek.
A pleasure.
I don't like to try to forecast what the rate hikes are going to be, but I can tell you that it's definitely going to throw a wrench into the economy in many different ways. For sure, the housing prices, which are sky high. People have been looking for their first home. There's this movement to stay at home, and once the interest rate starts to rise, and coupled with this high inflation, we could certainly see perhaps selling or less, buying demand, and could actually put a cooling off effect into the housing market in Canada.
Scott, what are some tips you have then for people looking for an affordable mortgage? What are some of the best ways to go about doing that?
Sure. I mean, the best thing you could do as a Canadian is to have good information at your fingertips, doing your research, talking to mortgage brokers and other professionals. But there's only so much they can do. You have to have your house in order. You have to have a good credit score, savings. It would be a great thing. A nice down payment would help a lot. And really organize finances, so when you do get qualified, you're qualified for the best rate, and that'll allow you to buy the house of your dream.
Scott, that rate hike is obviously going to affect the mortgage stress test here in Canada. Maybe you can explain what that stress test is, and give some tips to people out there on how to make sure that they can pass that test, and the importance of even having it in place.
Sure. So maybe I'll start with, what is the mortgage stress test? Yeah. Purchasing a home with a mortgage is a huge financial commitment for everyday Canadians, and banks want to test and make sure that borrowers are capable of bearing all the associated costs that come with a mortgage. So it's basically like a checkup, a financial checkup, to see if a consumer can afford their mortgage. And what they do is they add a couple interest points.
Okay.
They create a new benchmark rate. So if, for instance, your rate of borrowing is 4%, there's a formula. Don't have to get too much into the technicalities, but add 2%. And they see, well, can the consumer afford this mortgage with a higher rate? And if they can't, you might get rejected, which could be detrimental in acquiring your first house.
Yeah, of course. What about between fixed rates and variables? When we have this rumored rate hike, people are certainly that are locked in now are probably feeling pretty good about the fact that they locked in before this rate. But as far as variables go, Scott, do you think, is that still attractive to people?
It's always attractive, Derek, because you're generally getting a better rate now, and people don't want to look too far ahead. But a more conservative person will say, you know what, I'm scared about what's going to happen in the future. I'm scared about inflation. I want to lock in my rate now. And it allows them to better budget. It allows them to have less stress. It allows them to not take risk. So it's more for the conservative borrower, and someone who wants to lock in their rate. They know what they're paying and don't want to get hit with an interest rate rise that could, adversely affect their financial situation.
Just about 40 seconds left here, Scott. Quickly, how do you help clients at Loans Canada?
That's a great question. And I didn't give you my tips exactly how to make sure you pass the stress test. But first of all, Loans Canada, we're the original loan comparison site, operating for 10 years now in Canada. It's our anniversary. We offer financial literacy, education, calculators, all sorts of credit products to make sure Canadians are very informed when looking at different financial products. And we stress, and this is applicable to the stress test, savings, budgeting, knowing where you stand, having less debt.
All important things, Scott. I hate to cut you off, but we're just run out of time. Thanks for watching at home.